First question. Tell us about your parents.
That's the first question.
We go right for the heart.
No, absolutely. Let's go.
Actually, that's a good
Can
question.
we just get started?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We might as well.
This is how we roll. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, tell us about that. I want to know how you started, like how this all went down.
Okay, so my mom's name is Linda. Hi, Linda. She's probably watching this video. Right
Hi,
now.
Linda.
She's
You did a good
totally
job.
watching.
Yeah.
My dad's name is Tom. He probably doesn't know what live video is, so not saying hi to Dad, but he exists. My mom is a teacher. Well, she used to be a teacher. She's a guidance counselor now. She's also part-time at working for me as my bookkeeper and just momager type deal. But she's awesome. She's
Wait. She works for you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's do you guys get along that way, or?
Yeah, we get along.
So it's kind of like role reversal. Like if she messes up, you're like.
It's not like messing up.
Yeah.
It's more like how does she balance mom and like working with me at the same time, because she's very much protective over like the finances and like trusting people. I'm like, well, now it's a business and it's not really trusting people, it's trusting that they'll stick to their contract and their NDA kind of thing. But yeah, she's amazing.
How long now? How long has she been working with you?
Only the last like year, maybe half
so
year.
this is relatively new.
Yeah,
and
she
so
just
far
started
so good.
doing it. She just started doing it. She's like, you need to keep track of your expenses better. And I was like, okay. And she like just started doing it. I was like, all right.
If you think about it, like what better person to look after your finances than your own mom?
Oh, totally.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're the ones that are gonna be like, all right, listen.
Yeah.
All right, you don't need to buy the goat. Like that's a waste of money. You know what I mean?
Like, what are you spending this on? No, but she started doing it, and then obviously it just turned into like too much for me to be like, okay, you can't just keep doing this for fun on the weekends. Like it turned into a thing where she was spending a lot of time. So now she's working with me.
That's awesome.
Let's go back up on mom and tell me like give me something that she gave you as a child, like a life lesson or something that stuck with you into adulthood.
Oh, totally. So my parents got divorced when I was around 12, and it wasn't like a bad divorce. It wasn't like I never saw them fight or anything, but she just, I lived with her, my sister and I lived with her mostly throughout the rest of our lives. And she was like that independent woman, like completely just going after what she needed to do to make sure she could provide for us. She went back to get her master's degree in the middle of like the divorce and us moving and then us being in high school.
Oh, she's a badass.
Yeah, she's a super badass. So I've always just grown up with like the independent woman mindset because of her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's definitely obvious. You can see your strengths that come from that.
100%.
What are some of the challenges that have come from that, from having parents that split at that age and then being kind of having a woman that's really strong, but maybe not have the male side so much?
Yeah, I guess I totally can't, I guess, imagine it being different. I didn't struggle too much with it because I think I just didn't really know what was different. Again, the male figure in my life was never like super prominent. Like I saw my dad, I still see him and stuff, but it wasn't very like prominent and in your face. Like we have a really close relationship. So I guess just, I mean, maybe I'm like an intimidating woman to men. Luckily, I have a boyfriend who's not intimidated by me, but I guess that's very much still like a thing that happens.
Talk about this. I'll tell you what, that was when we met you.
That's
last
interesting
night,
that you would even say that.
Right.
Yeah.
We had dinner, and when you meet a woman like you who carries herself that strong, I mean, I think it's impressive that you just came down here on your own. You act like it was no big deal. And
you were like, who are you bringing with you? I was like, no, buddy.
Yeah. And
you're so young.
Right. I think that. So talk to me about how you've dealt with that, probably turning off guys because it's maybe too strong for a lot of guys.
Oh, I mean, before I met Brian, I met him back in December. I was single for like 3 years. And again, I'm like young, so it wasn't a big deal. But I was like, am I too aggressive or too maybe, I don't know what the word is, like too intimidating or whatever? Because a lot of guys are like, they want to be the alpha. They want to be like the person that's maybe taken care of.
They're just insecure.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what it is, yeah.
It's just like a societal kind of thing that men feel like they have to be.
That you're interesting. That's fascinating you say that. I mean, I trained a lot of doctors and surgeons when I had my wellness facility. And I had I had one female surgeon and a couple doctors, and all of them were single. And they were incredibly intelligent, incredibly confident.
Female doctors?
Female. But they would tell me that was something that would happen. Guys would get intimidated because I think, insecurities. Like, if you meet a woman that's really confident and strong and makes more money than you, then maybe that means I'm weak or whatever. It makes you feel kind of weird
being like, you don't have to be the caretaker and like be the white knight or whatever, like take care of somebody. That's like a natural, maybe something men feel like they have to do as they grow up. But when you meet someone who's like already good and they don't need you, you're like, oh, well, okay, you're too much for me. Like you know, when you want someone to want you, not necessarily need you, but when a woman needs you, it probably feels, you know, it boosts your ego.
That's right. Yeah. And for the kind of people that need that. Yeah. So have you always been like an overachiever?
Kind of, yeah. Like I definitely grew up like enjoying school. I loved it. I loved reading. I loved learning. I was in like high level classes and stuff. I didn't always have an easy time, like especially with sports. I did not have an easy time. I loved intellectual learning and I excelled with that pretty well, but I didn't necessarily excel in sports super well. So I would love it. Like I loved the learning. I loved the challenge. I loved the athleticism. Wasn't super good at it. Hand-eye coordination is meh. It's funny. I have a trainer I told you guys about. He trains me twice a week now. We do some like boxing with the
I've seen your video.
The bag.
The bag.
What's that like little
speed bag?
Oh, speed bag.
I fucking hate that. It's just I'm so terrible at the hand-eye coordination and like
a lot of reps.
he's like you got to do this and this and I'm just like I can't, and then I would do one and then like it would go back and forth a bunch and then I could never get it again and it would be so embarrassing. So I still he still has me practice, but it's just same thing with like lacrosse. I played lacrosse in high school. Catching the ball was the thing that held me back the most. I couldn't do it.
The whole
I was so
cradling part?
excited.
That's really tough.
Cradling is okay. Couldn't even catch the ball though. Like just hand-eye coordination.
Well, that was my problem.
Yeah.
Do you think that made you better and stronger because you weren't the greatest at all those sports and maybe you probably had to work a lot harder?
Totally. I like felt like I had to try harder and I like forced myself to do more camps, and then I would get a personal trainer, and that like got me into the gym. My mom was very athletic growing up too, and my grandpa was actually a professional power lifter when like back in the day.
Oh wow!
So
That's awesome. So you've got them genes in you.
Yeah, I got the genes, and he was.
Is it
super
the Irish
excited.
grandfather or the Italian grandfather?
The Irish one.
Yeah. No. He's so national.
He was so excited when I started doing powerlifting. It was like amazing. But yeah, so she got me into the gym, and it forced me to practice and become better so I can get better at the sports. Little did I know it wasn't really even the sports that I wanted to continue doing. It was the training and the getting better and the challenging myself was what I really liked. And the program that I got into for in high school was essentially to get better at being an athlete. So it was like a strength and conditioning program for kids in high school, all ages. So it was like some middle school kids. And
now,
some
did you
older
fall in
high
love with it
school.
right away when you started doing this kind of training?
Kinda. Like I liked the little group of kids that we had because I felt like I finally like was decent at something, and then the people in my little group became my friends. I didn't super love it. I wasn't like.
Were you really popular in school?
I was like that. There was like a weird person in between like the popular kids and
It's
the
all
not
right.
ones.
You could say you were cool.
No. I was
Still trying to be
friends
humble.
I was like friends with the cool people, but I also was in like the nerdy classes and stuff.
This is
so,
what
like,
like a floater.
And I'm picking
That's
up on
how I
this
was.
not because I think that's what you fit in terms of that, but it's almost like the way you're talking about working out, like you felt like you really fit in for the first time.
Totally.
So before that, you didn't really feel like you fit into any particular group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very interesting. Cool. So you fell in love with it. You're doing it. Your body. No, you didn't fall in love with it at first. At first, it was the group.
Yeah.
When did you fall in love with the training?
I think I fell in love with the training when I started doing, I was in in college. I just finished high school, got into college, and I think I was really loving it. I realized that I loved it so much when I didn't go to like the regular college gym, and I literally brought my car in order for me to get a gym membership. So I was like very dedicated to fitness at that point. I loved training and I loved like making new workouts for myself, and it was just really enjoyable to me. So I think like the ending of high school and then into college, especially because the last year of high school I played lacrosse because I didn't get on the soccer team. So it was like the backup. Wasn't super good. Played the bench junior year. Senior year, I was like, I still want to be on the team, but I don't want to sit the bench the whole year, so I'll be the bookkeeper. So I did the books. And then I was just like, you know what? I would rather spend my time at the gym, because I'd rather go do that and like be with that group and train versus like play around in the cold, wet field in Rhode Island, practice with the team and then not even play. Mm-hmm. So it just drew me obviously to go to the gym more.
Now, a lot of time for a lot of people, when we find this kind of passion for working out, all of a sudden where it's like, oh my God, I want to do this all the time. It's my favorite thing to do. A lot of times it's motivated by, it's a new thing that I've never done before. Or it could be, I like the way my body's changing, or it could be, like for me, what motivated me to really work out was based on my insecurities, my body image issues. I was a really skinny kid. So I fell in love with working out because I could change that. And it was this thing I could manipulate and mold. And did you find any of that for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was starting to feel a little bit insecure in high school. It wasn't super prevalent, though. It wasn't like I never had those stories where I was like, I feel like I'm looking at myself and I feel, well, I mean, a small bit, but it wasn't like a very prevalent part of my life in high school, I would say. But then in college, I did my first bikini competition because I was very like body conscious and I liked training and I did want to like look better. I didn't look bad by any means. I wasn't like overweight or anything. Always kind of healthy, focused on that. But I never nailed down the nutrition part of it. I always liked exercising, but nutrition, I would be a pretend flexible dieter and I didn't even know. I would eat like white omelets and salads, and then I would also just like love Oreos and whatever the heck else I wanted at night. And then
If it
college
fits your
drinking.
macros.
Yeah, it was like by accident.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily because of that, but I got into the competition because I saw a friend of mine do it, and I was like, oh my God, that must be like the secret missing link to like me getting to look the way I really, really
Wow,
want to. It
interesting.
was like the next level for me that I was
Did
like,
you
okay.
feel like you needed the competition to motivate you to get to that leanness, or was it just the training and stuff for it that you were?
I think it was like the nutrition for it that I was like, oh, this is like the magic piece. Because I don't know, I was trying some different things. I would just try to eat cleaner. I remember in my, I forget, freshman or sophomore year of college, it must have been freshman year because I would do 5 weeks before Halloween. Because, like, I don't know, Halloween, I was in a sorority. We'd all go out and wear, like, slutty outfits and shit. But
That's what Justin does.
so, like, get ready for,
my favorite holiday. He
Get ready
still
for the
does it, yeah.
Jasmine costume. What
I'm
slutty
the
outfits
devil
did
this
you
year.
wear?
Devil.
He's what do you? Yeah,
I'm a
what-
mouse. Duh.
Oh, you're a mouse.
He does the French maid.
He missed the reference.
I did. Sorry. We'll connect here at some point. Yeah. Don't worry. Keep trying. Keep trying.
Oh, okay. Well, back up. I tried to basically eat clean before Halloween so
Yeah.
I could look a little bit better. And I was like, it worked a little bit, but not really. It was like a couple weeks, you know? So I realized how quickly I could change by changing my nutrition. And I was like, oh, wow, this is the magic piece. It was a meal plan, though. And I did it it was a 5-week prep for like my first little OCB show I did.
So it was like, eat this,
Oh, yeah.
specifically. This is the same food
Was
every
it
day.
the standard, tilapia, asparagus type of?
Yep,
So,
it was.
you thought it was a missing
That's the
piece.
formula.
Little did you know you were about to embark on some horrible dieting stuff.
little did
some
I
horrible
know.
shit. Yeah.
Well, luckily, so it was only 5 weeks, and I realized at the end of it, I had no idea how to like get back to normal eating, but I was like, I don't fucking want to do that ever again. Like, I didn't get into the whole let me just eat clean forever because that's the only way. I like stopped after the show, and I was like, I don't want that anymore. That's terrible. I don't want to give up like things that I like. So that's when I found flexible dieting. And I was like, oh, this is the magical piece. And then I started doing that. And then I prepped myself for a show using flexible dieting, and it worked great. And I was like, this is great. And I would do the whole like, let me fit Pop-Tarts and candy and ice cream into a bowl. And like, oh my God, it magically fits my macros. And did all that. And then I did my second competition using flexible dieting. And that was when I moved to Los Angeles for the first time. That like the second show that I did was in the middle of the summer when I first moved to LA.
So you're in Rhode Island at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You come to LA. You're doing the competitions. You're starting to be more aware of this whole world, and looking at
That
yourself
had to be
a lot.
a massive culture
and
shock.
then you go to LA, which is like,
In Venice.
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
What was that like? Because like LA is like the root of all like insecurity. Like you go to LA and all of a sudden you're like, oh man,
Vanity land.
Was it like?
Vanity.
That'd have been total polar opposites, huh?
Was it that? Would that challenge you even more, or were you like, this is great, it's California?
Kind of. I was definitely like naive and just gung-ho to just be there. I did get there. I did my competition. I felt really great about myself, but I was in Venice, so it wasn't like Hollywood or Beverly Hills where everyone's an
Sure.
actor or a model. It was like weird people everywhere and like
Dreadlocks.
Yeah.
super diverse culture, tourists everywhere. I was a waitress on the Venice boardwalk on it, like
Sweet.
where there are crazy people everywhere, walking up and down every day, and it was just
Thongs
like,
and
holy
roller
crap.
skates. Yeah.
And our attire for the restaurant that I worked at was like whatever the heck we wanted. There was no. And then I also worked at a restaurant back in Rhode Island, and our attire, it was like a fine dining restaurant. I had like a button down and a tie. And they were like, wear whatever you want. And I was like, okay. There was this one girl that would wear like those Sophie shorts and like a crappy t-shirt. I was like, you like just wore your pajamas.
What are Sophie shorts?
Like those cottony shorts that like cheerleaders wear, I guess.
Oh yeah.
There's cotton shorts.
I appreciate that.
You can get away with that.
I appreciate those.
What's wrong with that? I wear those all the time.
Yeah, what?
So
what are you starting to
Or
put
those
together?
casual
Now,
Friday.
you're now over there. You've done this. You've done it a couple times enough to get in competing shape. So you've seen yourself probably in the best shape I would imagine in your life.
Mm-hmm.
What things are you starting to learn about yourself, like in just your relationship with exercise and food? What are you starting to piece together at this point?
Well, yeah. So this is where it will kind of take a turn for like the negative. So I did the show. It was great and all that stuff. And then in the middle of the summer, the show ended and I had friends come to visit me in LA. I was like, oh my God, so fun. It was my birthday. And then all of a sudden I catch myself eating this like bread pudding and I couldn't stop. And then I would get another one.
Wow.
And then here it goes into like.
Now, did you have the awareness right then when it happened, or is this like you later, like looking back?
Oh, I had it right there and then.
Oh, shit.
wow.
Oh shit.
This is fascinating.
So that was the summer that I started binging a lot. So it must have been probably, it wasn't that long and it wasn't as severe as other people, but it was definitely like binge eating a lot. I had like a little calendar on my bulletin board that said like this many days, no binging. And like I would have to do that whole thing.
Let me ask you this: when you're doing this, so this entire time, you're doing it, you're writing it on your calendar. What are you thinking like while it's happening? Are you thinking like, this is weird, this is a strange behavior, I need to be more aware of it, or?
I was very confused, number one, because I had heard of some people doing it, but they were the clean eating people. And I was a flexible dieter, so I was like, I didn't deprive myself of certain foods. Why is this happening? Little did I know, caloric deficit is why. It's not necessarily just because of the foods. And it also probably was because of the flexible dieting a little bit more, too, because like...
Because you were introducing those foods all the time.
Hyper
yeah,
palatable.
totally.
Yeah.
Those foods are engineered to get you hooked on them, and so when you're introducing them like that, and then you put yourself in a deficit,
And then you get freedom afterwards. It's just like a recipe for
and that's
disaster.
really it. The root of it really is the mentality around food and the relationship with food. Because what happens when you do competitions, to a lot of people, not to everybody, or when you treat food that way, even if it's flexible dieting, there's two gears that you have. There's either I'm on or now I'm off. There is no lifestyle that exists other than those two. So when you're on, and when you're off, you go way off.
Totally.
This is no different than the way scientists now view addiction with drugs. In the past, or for most of the time, we've understood addiction, or what we thought we understood of addiction, was based on models of mice or rats being put in a cage and given the option of drugs or water and food. And of course, the rat goes back to the drugs over and over again until it dies. And we're thinking there's a chemical dependency. But now scientists realize that if you take that mouse and you put it in like mouse heaven or rat heaven, give it access to food and fun and sex and all these other things, and you give it access to drugs, very few of them become addicted. So it's not so much the substance, although that plays a role, it's also the environment or the state of mind that the person's in. And so when you're in that state of mind where I'm on diet or I'm off diet, when you go off, you go off. You see what I'm saying? It's like this moral thing that happens. You see this happen with almost everything else. So at this point, this is happening with your relationship with food. Mm-hmm. What are you starting to do at this point? How are you piecing it together? How are you moving forward from that?
Yeah, I mean, I struggled a little bit. I would go, into the cabinet, get the cookie butter jar, eat it all and stuff like that. So I guess like the biggest thing when I was thinking about it was how can I stop myself from the starting point that will like trigger. It's the trigger thing. Like what's the trigger? How can I, stop doing that? And the only thing, which is not something that I did because I wanted to cure myself, I started another prep. And that's not necessarily obviously the thing that you would do to cure that or fix that or whatever. But I was just like, that's the only way I know how to be motivated and stop doing this. So I did another prep. I probably started that 3 months after the last one had ended. And I was just like, you know what, I'm going to do this. And then that went really well. I did another one. I did another show. It went great. And then the binging did come back a little bit, but it was less so. So I was focused more on after that prep, it was focused on like, okay, I'm going to do a reverse diet. I'm going to focus on getting my calories up. I was doing all this by myself too. And I was like, I'm not going to binge. And even that mentality still being in my head, and the whole on-off thing you guys are talking about, it's very much so like on off season and on season. So determining between the two, it was always very difficult because that's where the freedom comes in. That's where you start to feel like you can do whatever, especially when you're focused on flexible dieting so much. So it was, I think I slowly was starting to like think about it being a lifestyle, but I didn't really know how to make it that yet.
Now, what role, you're doing YouTube at this time?
No, not
Instagram?
yet. Instagram.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Are you at this point, because
I think I had like 10,000 followers.
Because you're very transparent to your audience, to your followers and fans. Were you transparent at this point with your Instagram? Were they aware of this with you, and was this part of you helping yourself with your awareness by sharing it with them?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Actually, yeah. I was like very good about sharing. I remember the first time I shared it, and I was like terrified to share it, and I made like
I bet you got incredible feedback.
Oh yeah, all of the great
People
feedback.
always appreciate that.
Yeah, and then you have like no idea now the amount of times that I've shared things that are like terrifying or struggles. I'm waiting for the feedback because I know so many people are just going to jump on it and be like, thank you so much. But when you first do it for the first time, it's like, oh, I don't know what people are going to think about me, but it's so
it's all your laundry out there for the world, you know.
Right.
It's like
One of our early episodes was on our motivations for when we first started working out, and it was all, I mean, we were all insecure at some point, you know, being the skinny guy or whatever, not performing, and we talked about it for an entire episode.
Right.
And it felt really good. Like doing this is very therapeutic. That's why I asked you if it played a role in you becoming aware of what you were going through. It definitely plays a role for us. But yeah, you're right. After we did that, I remember after we did that episode, I was like, oh man, I wonder how many people are going to hear that. And
Even just doing YouTube and podcasting is therapeutic, talking about your stuff.
absolutely.
It's like you have a therapy session with either yourself or with other people.
Yeah.
And it allows you to just express that in a safe environment.
How many shows have you done at this point where we're at right now in your life? Like, have you because you did 8 total, you said, right?
Yeah.
So are you 4 or 5 in? How many are you in right now?
3.
Oh, you're just 3 in
3
right
in.
now. Okay. So now as you continue on this journey and you start doing more shows, are you each time kind of picking up things and learning like this is good, bad? What are you going through as you continue to progress and you're learning about your relationship with food now and exercise?
Yeah, totally. So there was a few things that I picked up the second time that were like good/bad. So the first thing that I picked up from my first like structured reverse diet was that the more food that you eat doesn't necessarily mean the more muscle you're going to build in your off season. So I had to go through like getting a little gaining a little fat, and I was like, oh, this didn't work. And then I also realized that the more food you eat in your off season doesn't necessarily mean the more food you're going to eat in your prep, because I had to get lower in my second prep, and I was like, I'm so confused. Like, why do I have to eat less? Because I did my reverse diet and like it should have been magical. Like it should have just allowed me to eat more, but that doesn't necessarily happen.
This was your fourth?
This is the fourth.
Yeah, I think your metabolism's now starting to
Oh,
react
totally.
to all the shows.
Totally. Yep. And that was like the beginning of my metabolism reacting to the shows. It was just getting there. So I did 3 shows that summer. I did 1 national show I didn't place, 1 local show that I got an overall at, and then another national show that I didn't place at. So I was like, okay, like whatever. And then I started a really strict reverse diet again, and I stayed really lean. It was one of those where you would add like 50 to 100 calories or so every few weeks, stayed super lean, even got like a little leaner after the first show and started like looking better because I was filling out. And I did it very strictly, and I was tracking everything, and I was still into tracking everything. I was very I was living alone. I'm new to LA again, so I didn't have too many friends, right. And I was just like, I have no reason to go out and eat something off my meal plan or my macros or whatever, because I don't have that many friends. And I was like, I don't have a boyfriend, I don't have date nights, like none of that. So I was just like, why would I go?
You came out to LA all by yourself, or did you have family there?
I had so the first summer that I lived here was just for a summer, and then I met people at my waitressing job.
Oh,
so
wow.
when I moved out for the second time permanently,
Man.
I had that like couple friends.
That must have been a huge growth period for you.
Oh yeah,
that transition.
Totally, especially because I'm kind of like introverted, and I won't necessarily just go meet people. I'll be like, I am in the same space as you, but I'm not gonna talk to you. I don't know. I was terrified to meet people.
So at which contest did you start to really put this together? Is it at this point where you're like, okay, my metabolism's reacting a certain way, I need to...
Yeah, and I knew I wanted to do the reverse diet thing too. However, I also that year entered the bodybuilding.com spokesmodel search. So here it is. I finished my competitions in July. August comes around, September comes around, and then you apply to the spokesmodel search, and I got in. So you need at least double the time that you prep to go back to homeostasis at least. I never did more than like 4 months. So 3 months or so went by. I applied, started dieting again for the spokesmodel search. And I specifically remember that winter. It was over the holidays. Again, I was in LA. I didn't go home for the holidays. I went in between because I still didn't have a lot of money. And I was like, it's really cheap to go home between November and December. I'm going to do that instead of go for the holidays. And I hung out with my friends for the holidays. I like made cauliflower mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving. And I had like that and turkey and vegetables. And like, that's it. Tracking all that for Thanksgiving. And I was like, you know what? It makes me feel good. I'm going to do that. And I'm like prepping for this bodybuilding.com spokesmodel search. And I remember specifically for that, it was like an 8-week prep for that in the middle of the winter. And I specifically remember when my body just stalled and I was like so fucking pissed. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, why do I have to do this? I remember being so angry that I did like fasted HIIT cardio in the morning because I was like, why isn't this working?
So you're pushing harder and harder to get it to respond, which is exactly
the only way to go from there,
the opposite.
Right? Yeah.
What's happening is, and you said something like it should take you twice as long to come out of your prep as it does to go in, or something like that.
Well, like if you prep for 4 months, at least 8 months off.
So I've heard that, and people have repeated that a lot of times. But that's a number that is, I think, just given by coaches. That
right.
They found.
It's just like a.
The interesting thing is, if your body learns to adapt to become very, very efficient, especially through repeated exposures to sub-calorie diet and lots of energy expenditure, you start to develop adaptations that last much, much, much longer.
I would imagine.
No different than when you lift weights or try to build cardio.
I'd imagine coaches say that so they can get their clients back into a prep.
It depends on the person, but if you start
some
to notice,
coaches just don't know too. That's what I dealt with a lot. I mean, a lot of the coaches that I talked to when I was going through the NPC and IFBB, I kept thinking that as I moved up the rankings, I would meet like these just really brilliant coaches that were giving really good advice. And a lot of it is, passed down kind of bro science from one coach to the next. Because if you take anybody for 12 weeks and you restrict them by 500 to 1,000 calories a day and you tell them to do cardio for an hour a day, 2 times,
they're going to change.
Yeah, their body, you're gonna get lean. It's what you're doing to that metabolism and then what happens afterwards that I don't think a lot of them are really talking to these girls and guys afterwards. I met a lot of men's physique and bodybuilder guys that couldn't figure it out, and they go in the off season, they put on 40 pounds. Right. It's like so bad, and none of that is good weight. I mean, literally, you're maybe getting 10 pounds at most if you're anabolically enhanced of muscle, and the other 30 is all bad weight. And
it's funny because we will refer to it as a damaged metabolism or my metabolism's broken, but in reality, your body's doing exactly what it's supposed to.
Super efficient.
Yeah.
It's becoming very, very efficient. It's doing a good job of doing it. But it does so by down-regulating receptors for certain hormones, which then your body produces more of those hormones to try and give you the same effect, and you get this kind of cascading effect. You get in women a progesterone estrogen imbalance that can happen. Many women will lose their period or won't menstruate. And
I lost mine for a while.
Yeah, and so and by the way, that is a very obvious. And I know we're on your channel and you have a lot of female fans, and for those people who diet and want to compete, like that is a clear sign that your body is getting very adapted to becoming efficient. Not necessarily a bad thing, but kind of is, especially if you keep.
Well, Amanda, did you notice any other signs? Were you going through did you notice like sleep or energy,
hair loss, or
skin? Did you anything else you go through?
No hair loss or anything, but definitely energy, definitely the sleep, especially last year. So back kind of like to the timeline thing. So the spokesmodel search happened. That was in January. Took 2 months off. Gained 10 pounds in like the 2 months. So I was like, I'm going to do a little bit of a bulk before, because I had planned on starting this prep. Because I was like, I'm taking my YouTube channel seriously. I'm going to do this prep. I'm going to document the whole thing. I had this whole like elaborate plan. And that prep got me from like 6,000 subscribers to like 100,000 in 6 months. So it was like, all of these things kind of happened for like partially for like career purposes. Mm-hmm. But there was lots of dieting. So I did that second prep that year, and again, it was really low calorie, and then I like lose the timeline. But the prep this past year was the worst one, and it was very low calorie. I would like take naps after I woke up and ate my breakfast in the morning, and it was just, my energy was super low. I felt like brain fog and all of that stuff. No hair loss or anything. And I also wasn't doing that much cardio. Like my coach took more of like the lower calorie, less cardio approach for the adaptation purposes.
So, and that's rare.
That's very rare.
He's a very smart coach. He's not nuts.
Obviously you had a good coach.
Thinking,
right, yeah. He's a very good coach. So, and he kind of just flowed with what I knew was my best career moves at that time, and he's really aware of my health and aware of the after. He's not one of those people that leaves their clients after they're done with prep. So it wasn't that bad with the cardio, but definitely like the low calorie messed with my energy a lot. But I was just like, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Did you notice any digestive issues through this process?
Yeah,
wow.
I had some digestion problems. Especially there was one point in like one of the preps that I did where I was eating like broccoli slaw and I was like, I can't, like, what's going on? Like I was so bloated. And then he was like, that's broccoli is one of those vegetables that is really, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's high in sulfur.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I said that as a question.
Yes, cruciferous.
Cruciferous.
That's the word.
Yeah. So what happens is, especially through hard training, is you get this hyper-inflammatory response, and the gut becomes inflamed. That's your gut response to everything. As it becomes inflamed, you get.
I would also be very bloated on show day.
Yeah.
Because I was like stressed.
You get inflammation in the gut causes dysbiosis, which is the gut bacteria is off, and we know that controls so many things from mood to attitude, all that stuff. But besides that, when your gut is inflamed, the food you eat the most, some of it will travel through the gut lining, and your body develops antibodies, and you develop food intolerances, which is super common with competitors.
So
because they'll eat the same food over and over during this like starved state and also this hard training state, and it just sets up this stage for this immune response, and then all of a sudden they have food intolerances. Like,
all the food that they're used to eating.
That's usually where they'll start happening. You'll find like, I used to be able to eat that. Now it makes me super bloated, or it makes me constipated, or whatever.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So at this
That'll
point,
happen.
so this is happening. When do you decide you want to stop and not do it anymore?
So last year, what's it now, October? It must have been a year ago now. So I did my last show last year, and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do these shows. I said that I was going to do them. I finished them. And I literally started breaking down at the end of my last show. I was like, I just did the hardest thing that I've ever been through. It was just
Did you break down on your channel too?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you
I've
did
done that
for
a couple
fans.
times.
Keeping it real.
Keeping the crying in there.
Yeah.
I don't
Tried
know.
that one time. Didn't work.
Really?
I was like, nobody believed it.
Yeah.
It wasn't believable.
Somebody ate Justin's
So
cookie.
this actually, this
That
is
would make me
still,
cry.
I would imagine, you're still probably, kind of growing through this. It's only a year ago that you did your last show. I remember what I found that was really crazy was when I was going through the process, I was fully aware of what should happen to me afterwards, and I still partook. I still would find myself kind of binge eating on stuff, and it's like, and I knew damn well, and it was like, whoa, if that's happening to me, like how many other people, like they're just oblivious of it, aren't really thinking about it, right? Like that's what went through my mind right away.
Yeah. So last year, after that last show, I had a couple trips planned. So like I went to New York, I went to, I forget where else, Vegas for the Olympia, and I was just like, I am so burnt out. Like I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I just ate whatever. It wasn't necessarily like binge eating like I was previously, like secretly in my home, but I would just go out with my friends and just like get whatever the fuck I wanted.
Right.
And that like went on for a few months, and it was just like, you give yourself some period of time to like be free and like let your body relax and stuff, but I did it too frequently and too long. So I gained 20 pounds last year. So I was like 113 on stage, and I got up to like 139 was my highest this year. So it was like 25.
So last night we had dinner, and you kind of saw something that I hacked into myself that I created because when I was competing, I found that just going for a walk afterwards, are there new rituals or habits that you've now created that were positive that you've kind of taught yourself because from the whole competing process that you do different now that you weren't doing before?
Yeah, totally. So during prep, I had to create stress relieving strategies for myself, because I, number one, realized cortisol was screwing up my fat loss. So I was like, I have to de-stress whenever I would feel very, very stressed, because I'm like prone to anxiety. And my body would just react, like my gut would react very, very bad. So I learned how to meditate and read and relax. So I started meditating because of prep. Still not one to do it super consistently, but I do know every single time I do it, and it's one of those things that I'm working towards doing it daily. So it's not something that you can just do to fix your stress. It's something that you can do to prevent it from happening frequently and more strongly for yourself. So that's definitely the number one thing that I've learned how to do since competing.
Yeah. Anything that you still kind of struggle with, like that you maybe see yourself catching bad patterns or habits or kind of starting to go back to? Do you ever notice anything?
Yeah. Let me see. There's definitely, I guess, some just food focused stuff and then training focused stuff. So mindset behind training. Now it's not fully there, but like my goal is to just feel good with how I'm training. I'm still getting out of the mindset of like, I will do this to look better versus I will do this to feel better. I'm like so getting there. I'm definitely on the other end of the spectrum more so now, but doing things for the motivation to look better is definitely a competing mindset thing.
You're moving very quickly.
Yeah.
You are. Yeah. Well, no, you're moving. So this
I surround myself with good
hyper
people.
aware.
That's and you know what? I will say this. We've said this all the time. Maybe you can chime in on this, but since we started the podcast, I grow at 10 times the speed I did before.
Oh my God, yeah.
Same thing for
Yeah,
you?
totally.
Yeah, maybe because we talk about it so much and we talk about ourselves,
That and all
but then
the
the people we
feedback
get to meet.
people-
Well, yeah,
giving you
the
and stuff.
minds that you're hanging around with. I mean, it's always nice to meet other really growth-minded people and then listen to their journey and the things. I think we pick up something from every interview that we do with somebody.
Yeah, totally.
So out of all the things you're doing, the YouTube and the podcast, where is most of your focus going right now? Are you really trying to put a lot of energy in the podcasting arena more? Like where are you thinking business-wise right now?
Yeah, so I mean, the podcast this year, it didn't require a whole lot of my energy. Like it was easy. I live in LA. It's easy to meet people. It's easy to just do it. And then I have like an editor and someone who does the blog posts and stuff to get it up there. Haven't focused on growing it too much in podcast realm. Like I've done podcast interviews, and I think like you guys said earlier, that's like the number one way to get exposure for podcasts. So I'm trying to do that more. But this year was like so much growth and change and transition and like stretching myself with business, my own physical fitness goals, my mental wellness goals. I can move to a new place. I got a new boyfriend. There's all these things like new businesses, obviously the podcast, my coaching clients. I started a fundraiser with a couple of friends for Pencils of Promise. So, like there's all these things that I'm doing this year for like building purposes. So I'm like laying foundation for stuff this year.
Do you ever feel overwhelmed at all with carrying all that?
Yeah.
What do you notice in yourself when you see that coming? Do you
like the way that I react to? Yeah. So there's like, interestingly enough, I talked to Jordan Syatt the other day on a podcast, and he works for Gary Vee.
You know the trainer Gary Vee, yeah.
And he told me that Gary, he won't physically show his stress to other people when he's overwhelmed because it doesn't allow anybody else to feel good about the situation. Like it just makes it worse. I'm the opposite. I make sure everybody knows that I'm stressed. It's
which is
terrible.
probably healthier. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I let everybody know. Sometimes I just get really overwhelmed and
flip
anxious.
over desks and chairs.
Yeah.
Just not feeling it today.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I kind of just get really overwhelmed. I make sure everybody knows. I have to talk about it. I have to have a plan of action. If I don't have a system in place or a support system in place, because I've hired a lot of people this year for my team. So I'm like, there's only so much bandwidth you have to do the amount of things that you're doing. Yeah. And then delegating to other people is important as well. So when I kind of realize I'm getting there, it's either like something has to give or I have to put something else into the system, like another person.
Do you have any mentors or anything business-wise, like people that are really helping you with this right now?
Yeah. So I hired Lewis Howes this year, and we started in January. He has this mastermind program that's 25 or 23 of us or something like that. And it's a year-long program. Essentially, we just get together 3 times a year. We'll do calls once a month with each other and just talk about what each person is either struggling with or going through or needs support on. I have learned so much from that group this year. It's like absolutely crazy. Not even just business strategy and practical stuff, but just mindset around business, mindset around life. It's not just about business growth, but it's about personal growth and the impact you're making on the world. So not even just Lewis, but Lewis is really good at bringing together amazing people. So the people in the group, we've all like really been able to.
You have to expand on. I just what I find so fascinating about that is someone at your age to make the decision to make that type of investment.
Yeah. I don't know what the fuck.
Let's talk about that.
You're
like
so mature.
I'm sure a lot of people watching right now or listening right now probably don't know how much that cost. I know it's not cheap to do that at all. It's a major. Probably could have bought a car instead. And you didn't go buy yourself a car. You decided
I had a new Honda Civic though.
But I mean, let's talk about that. Where did that come from? Who I would have never thought to do that at that age. Like I would have gone and bought myself something if I had those kind of funds. So who instilled that in you to reach out and continue to grow yourself like that?
That's a good question. I think my mom, again, was very much so. I've always been very practical because of her. I've always not really been materialistic. Like things to me don't really mean a whole lot. So the thing that sparked my interest in the program was that throughout the last year or so, not this past year, but 2016, I was growing my business just on YouTube. And I realized last year, like I wasn't really an entrepreneur. I was just doing YouTube, having sponsorships, did really well with just promoting my sponsors and vlogging. And it wasn't really promoting so much because I was just vlogging and living my life and they just showed up. So it was really easy for us to have a great relationship. And I wanted to take a step back from making so many videos every week. I was like, I don't want to really vlog that much anymore. I also was like last year gaining the weight. So I was kind of insecure, to be honest, making videos. And I was just like, I need something else that's not me having to be like look a certain way. People were starting to like, call me fat and shit on YouTube all the time in the comments section.
YouTube's so great, isn't it?
Oh my God, YouTube
best.
trolls are the worst.
Thank you guys. Yeah.
Hey,
Shout
everyone.
out.
I'm just
Not
kidding.
the people watching are nice.
Troll 69. You know who you are.
No,
No,
really,
no.
though. YouTube can be tough like that. Talk about that. What was that? We shared on the show. I mean, it was the one time I got emotional on the show. It was when we first started.
I got like a lump in my throat.
It was like our first
It was brutal.
our first non 5-star review that was left on our show.
Oh, no.
And it was totally directed at me. And like
Aw.
I remember like that feeling the first time that happened. It hurt my
totally
feelings.
singled
What
him
did he
out for
say?
no reason.
I don't even remember.
Well, here's the worst.
He gets so mad.
No, the worst part about it. Here's what happened. This is why it was. He hated it so much
was
because
awkward.
it wasn't a bad review on Mind Pump. It was a great review on me, a great review on Justin.
Yeah, they
Everybody's
loved
great.
us, apparently.
And then
Yeah.
Adam sucks. Like, get rid of Adam. He sucks.
Wow.
Just like it must be an angry old girlfriend.
It had
or something,
to be
but
an
it just hit me
ex-girlfriend.
right. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think I have. Literally, I've been. I've
You
the
know,
things that
friends-
they say that like hit you right where you're already insecure and
yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
Well,
Which-
you know what? That's
so-
why you grow so fast.
Have you?
And that's
Yeah.
that's where I was heading with that was, it was a major eye-opening thing for me to realize, like, whoa, like I can't believe that affected me like that, and it pointed out my own insecurities.
totally.
Do you touch on this like in your influencer groups and stuff that you teach? Do you guys get into this?
I don't think my students in particular are people who are really just getting started, so they're totally not in the realm of like being bashed yet.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to maybe break a certain threshold for people to like you gain a lot of success and then people start to care about being mean to you.
Yeah.
So they're not there yet, but I will eventually. But learning how to deal with that stuff is like a whole other podcast. It's interesting.
What do you say when people ask, like they meet you and they don't know you, and like they ask you, like, well, what do you do?
Oh, that's So
What's your job? Yeah.
now I say that I am an online educator because I like to use that word. I say that I have a YouTube channel, a podcast, own a couple businesses. It's hard to even say what it all is. So I kind of try.
You don't have an elevator pitch?
No, I need to build one because it's evolved so much this year. It still is. I'm in the middle of like a rebranding with like a marketing.
Well,
guy
what's
and
the
stuff, too, so.
why behind what you do? Like why? Why do you do all that?
So my overarching goal is essentially to show people that they can do something that makes their life feel fulfilled. Like they feel fulfilled in their life based off of either what they do or their mindset behind why they're doing it and what they're doing. So whether that's fitness, whether that's health, whether that's their business, that's my overarching goal. And that's why I like to focus on the value of the podcast episodes and the YouTube videos. That's why I'm like, vlogging, it's not really helping anybody. Maybe it's entertaining. whatever. I don't feel connected to it.
That's actually really cool. I feel the same. I feel it's more the soap opera part of the business, right? The people just want to kind of connect to the day-to-day stuff. It's like, what are you really learning or getting from this? But then talk about what that's like to feel almost attached to that, because you know that there's a ton of people probably.
And that's how you started.
Yeah, a lot
Right.
of people want that.
And like I rewatch my old videos. I'm like, these are really fun. I kind of miss them, but I just like don't feel inspired to pick up the camera in the same way anymore. And I get like being a role model based off of how you live your life on a day to day. You know, like there is value in that. It's like seeing how someone lives versus like just talking about topics.
Yeah.
It's like you can really see what you're doing and what the other person is doing, and then how they live and how you live. And I get that to an extent.
Yeah, but then when do you have your life then, right? Like
Exactly.
what is yours? You know, what do you have for yourself that you're not sharing with everybody else? I think a lot of people don't really think about that. I think a lot of people probably look at you and they're very envious of all the people connected to you and that look up to you probably.
Yeah.
And you think no one thinks about like, what does that mean for you? Like, you know, hey, maybe I don't get a lot of my own life, you know?
Right.
What's it like for you, like outside of your relationship with your boyfriend? What about like friends and people you hang out with? Do you get a lot of time with that, or do you sometimes almost feel alone for somebody who's connected to so many people?
Yeah, there's totally that like aloneness feeling for the massive connection. And I think that's why when I first got started with YouTube, again, I don't have that many friends. I wasn't doing a whole lot of stuff. I was like alone to like YouTube was my family. Like they were my friends.
Yeah.
And it's just like funny. Like, the internet's my friend. But that's where it came from. And that's why I like was so excited to do it every single day. And now that I've kind of like built my life, and I have businesses, family, friends and family. I live with my boyfriend, but friends and family I probably could be way more connected to if like taking steps back from like what I'm doing during the day with business stuff.
Yeah.
I probably could spend more time with them and talking to them and being more connected to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is that struggle of like, I want to show my life still, but like I also have a really great one now and I kind of want to keep it to myself. Not in like a selfish way, but just
Well, no, it has to.
you know, it's necessary.
Yeah,
for
and it's
mental
not,
sanity.
and it doesn't even matter if
Selfie.
it's selfish. It is, I mean, you have to. You know, you can only pour from a full cup.
Yes,
You know what I'm saying?
That's what I've been learning a lot.
And that's a very important thing to understand, because as much as I'm a parent, so I have 2 kids, and it's very easy to fall into the trap of being a martyr for your kids. But the reality is, I'm not going to be a great dad or the father that they deserve if I don't take care of
Yes,
myself. If I'm not
absolutely.
my best, then they're not going to get my best.
Absolutely.
So it sounds counterintuitive, but you have to focus on you so you can focus on everybody else.
Absolutely.
We talked a little bit about this earlier when we were getting coffee, but I want to ask you here on the podcast. Are you what drives you to do what you do? Are you driven by inspiration and by your passion, or are there other things? In other words, can you find yourself? Are you able to do things you're not necessarily inspired to do, or is that like death?
I used to be able to, because I thought that I had to do everything on my own. I didn't know anything about teams. I didn't know anything about outsourcing. I didn't know that I couldn't just hustle and do all like heavy effort, heavy grind, heavy hustle. I was just all in on the hustle and I had no idea about anything else. Like I would work just in the morning and all the way to the night. And again, like not really a whole lot of life outside of that. And I was like building and I was okay with that until I, again, realized how much more there is to life. And I was competing. Competing was building my YouTube channel. Things were going so well. My Instagram was growing. I was connecting to a lot of different people and it was just going well for that. And the grind was the only thing that I really knew. So now that I am able to take some steps back, I'm really motivated by time, like quality time with people. Quality time is my love language. I don't know if you guys do love language tests. Have you ever done it?
I've read the book.
No.
Yeah.
What's yours?
I think I'm a touch guy.
I'm
You
a
definitely
receive gifts.
Yeah.
I
You're
like-
a gifts?
Yeah.
Gifts is my
I like
last
shiny things. So
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. Hence why I said that's why I was so impressed that I remember getting to a point where I had that kind of money, and I know mine stems from as a child I didn't have a lot of money at all. We were poor, and so when I finally got to a place where I could buy things for myself, it wasn't until I was in my late 20s that I really started to reinvest into my personal growth and education.
Right.
So I find that really fascinating that you did that early, but I also know too that mine's stem from my childhood of wanting shiny things.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Is one of them a communicator or something like that?
Words of affirmation.
There you go. That's me.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
So you're a
Quality time.
quality time.
Yeah, so quality time is important to me in terms of being able to have the time to spend the quality time. So I'm motivated by having more time. So if things can be more efficient, if I could, I won't do something that will like stretch me so much anymore, because I would prefer stopping work and going to lunch with a friend than like getting something else done, you know?
Yeah.
Or like going to dinner, or like enjoying myself with people. I really like one-on-one or like 2-on-1 or 3-on-1 interaction. I'm not like a big group type of person, but if I can get quality time with people, that's what I'm motivated by, and like the people that I really care about.
So, because you said you weren't a material person.
Yeah.
So-
Gifts were my last one.
Do you have do you have a good concept of money, or for you, is it more like, I love what I do and this is great also, and then sometimes I'll go on vacations?
Yeah, that's kind of it. I never really had like a bad view of money, but I also I wasn't poor. Like, my parents did well. They were able to pay for my first year of college, and then I got student loans. I also did my waitressing on the side so I can make money, but if I ever needed anything, like, my dad would come down and take us out to dinner and give me and Lindsay like $50 or whatever for the week and stuff. And so I wasn't like poor. I didn't have like a bad view of money, but like whenever I started, I was really, really into making money for myself. I was like, I don't want them to give me anything. Like, at some point in the middle of like early freshman, sophomore year of college, I was like, I don't want you to give me stuff. I want to like work for it. So, what was your question? Original question?
So some people like,
the money question.
yeah, so like, because when I first, when I was 19, I was managing gyms. So I had staffs, 30, 40 people working for me. And I was making six figures, and this is back in 1998. So it was a lot of money, but I didn't have any concept of it because I lived at home. I didn't buy things. I don't care about things too much.
Right.
I just loved what I did. And so it was just like, oh, cool, I'm making money. And I just put it in the bank.
It was like it's like
It wasn't
an
a big
after
deal.
effect, right?
Yeah. Do you find yourself like that?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's there and you're like, great, but it's more of like, now I'm like investing a lot back into my business. It's just an exchange now. It's not like, when you get to a certain point where you feel really comfortable, there's not much more that will make you happy aside from less money problems. So once you hit a threshold where you have minimal problems living, I feel like after that is where it's kind of, I mean, for me anyway, personally, it's kind of like, it's an after effect, and it's more for increased growth. So like, the more you can make, the more you can invest back in it, and the more it can be better, and the more you can build better relationships, and the more time that you can have, and like investing into things that will give you more of like whatever you're motivated by, whether it's time, whether it's like, some people are motivated by I forget what test it is, but someone said there's like time, challenge, money, and like something else. So some people are very motivated by
It's like the Facebook survey I just filled out. Awesome.
Yeah, depending on which color you like, it tells you.
yeah. Well, time is mine. So.
What characteristic about yourself would you think, or would you attribute to most of your success? Is what would you say has got you this far? Like, that you've leaned on the most. Like, I'm this type of a person, and that's carried me this far.
I think honesty it's like a weird thing. I guess the one constant in all of my social medias over the last, I don't know, since I started, was like me just being very honest about everything, really open, really transparent. I don't hide my feelings. I very much so express all of them all the time. And I think that's helped me get to where I am today, just by whether it's connecting with my audience members or just being open to people I work with or people that I love or live with about how I'm feeling. And that's success in all areas of life, is because I've been so honest, and I haven't been shy to ask for help. I don't feel disempowered, is that a word? Disempowered by asking for help, or like being the person that's looking for growth through other people, like educators, mentors, or whatever.
You would be surprised. Well, actually, I was surprised. I don't know if you found this, that when you ask people for help, they usually do it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for asking. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's correct. Like, you'll go up to someone who you think, like, why would this person help me? They're so...
Well, you have to ask it in a certain way.
Oh, like how?
Like, you can't expect them to just... I mean, it depends on who you're asking, why you're asking it. If it's someone that they have 400 videos on their YouTube channel, and then, I don't know, however many podcasts, and then you ask them what's the best way to lose fat. That is the worst thing you can do, because you haven't done your own research. Like, you have to do your own, maybe, trials and errors for yourself. Like, you go through this, and this, and you're like, I want to get to the next level. I think you're the greatest person to help do that. Versus like, hey, can you help me? I would super love if you answered my DM. it's a little different.
Yeah.
I love that you address that because that's
true.
something that we all deal with. That's a challenge, right? There's people that all of a sudden drop it on the page, or they heard from somebody that, ask the Mind Pump guys, and you just come directly in. You ask a question that
Give me the formula.
If all you did was go to our YouTube and see that we've
Or like your website, or
Right.
like get your programs,
Right.
and spent time building.
Right, like the least could do that because it is tough and I think you're very similar to us where we're trying to connect with as many people as we possibly can and answer as many questions. It's like, I can't go around and answer everyone's specific question, especially when I've already created something for that exact answer.
Totally.
Right?
And you like spend time creating things so you don't have to answer that question 1,000 times.
Right.
So
I know for us, I just love meeting people. So if people ask a question and I think, they're genuinely asking or whatever,
Yeah.
I'll answer it.
it's a vibe you get.
We've had people come in and sit in on our shows and they're like, well, why did you let me come in? I'm like, because you asked.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
cool. We get to meet new people. So
Yeah.
So
Totally.
So looking forward, like, what are you excited about moving forward? Where do you want to be, in 5 years, 10 years? Like, what's the big plan?
It's like funny you asked that because this is like the first year that I even envision what a 5-year would look like. Last year, if you asked me this, I'd be like, I don't know. Everything has changed so much. And now I have actual businesses versus just making YouTube videos and having sponsors. Like, obviously in my head last year, I knew that wasn't long term. And I was like, I don't know what's next. But now I kind of do. Main focuses are a couple different things. The podcast is like so fun for me. It's a really number one great way to connect with really freaking awesome people. Like you guys said, like the amount that you learn through speaking with other people is just mind blowing. Like even today and yesterday, meeting you guys and just talking with you guys are so experienced in podcasting. You have so much life experience in so many different areas. You guys are all really different, but you have a lot of value to bring as a team and as individuals. And then it's just, again, just really fun talking to people. I think it brings a completely different type of value to audience members. You get to hear from different people, different perspectives, and the whole purpose is to give you something that you can take away and you can learn and grow from yourself. So it's not even like we get to grow. It's like everyone else gets to grow with us, and it's great. So I love that. And YouTube is a little like that, depending on how you set it up, I guess. So figuring out how I kind of want to create video content that connects and resonates is something I'm going through now. I have my businesses, so my coaching clients that I have, absolutely love that. Like my goal is not just to like get as many people and shove as many people in there as possible, but to like actually get these people the results that they're looking for is really important to me. So consistently working on building that and making it better, making the experience better. I just had a live event this last weekend and it was just like the experience for these people. They cried, they figured out like their life purpose, and like I had a life coach come in and stuff. And
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What scares you about all this? What are
not
you
being good enough. Oh, I was so scared like when I first started.
What do you mean by that? Not good enough for everybody else, or what do you mean?
Not good enough to get them the results that I'm telling them I can get them, I guess.
Do you feel like an imposter sometimes?
Oh, totally. Only like I know that I've had success for myself, but I know so many people have success for themselves a little bit and then they like go coach people. And I don't want to be that person, but I know that my heart's in the right place and I know that I have the right resources and the right drive to make sure that I do everything I possibly can to make it the best program ever. But you know, it's still new. It's not like I've been doing it for 20 years and I used to be this and I have this background in business and I have this background in this. Like I don't, but I have the heart and the drive and like the genuine care to make sure these people get what they want out of it. And like last weekend was a confirmation for me that I am doing the right thing.
This is very similar to what it's like for coaching our clients, getting clients in shape.
Totally.
And of course, you know, 80% of them still fail at that because it still takes them to put the work in. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that's very similar with what you're doing with the influencers. Do you already have to kind of have conversations with yourself around like, you know, I need to be understanding that that's going to happen and not beat myself up over it and stuff?
I actually like totally compare it to fitness coaching. Because I completely am aware of when you are a fitness coach, you can be really great, but someone also still might not get results because even though you're really great and what you're giving them is really great, and maybe you've given them everything in the whole entire world, but they still might not succeed for whatever reason within themselves. So I like comparing things to fitness and fitness coaching because they connect a ton.
Right, a lot of parallels with that for sure. And again, being the coach, I remember having to kind of figure this out. And then you also get better at, I think, setting the table, right, for them, the expectations, right, giving them better perspective on, all right, listen, you're not going to just turn on your Instagram or your YouTube and all of a sudden you're going to have 500,000 people. It's going to be hard. You're going to go through this. Like,
Yep.
is this a lot of stuff that you guys talk inside the class and stuff? Oh,
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's like a intensive program, so they like are very aware that it's not going to be some magical quick fix. It's a lot of like mental work. It's a lot of emotional. Like if your brain and your mentality isn't in the right spot for you to grow and stretch yourself so you can help other people, it's got to be worked on throughout the process.
So you've been around a lot of great minds. You're a part of the Lewis Howes group, which I think is awesome too. Single best business advice you've gotten?
Oh, so hard. Invest in a coach. Grant Cardone was one of the speakers at one of Lewis's events, and he said like the best investment he's ever made was his $3,000 that he invested in his first coach. It just helps you accelerate way faster than you would if you try to just figure it out on your own, because we all want to. Super ego boosting if we can figure it out all on our own. But when you have people who have been in your shoes and are where you want to be, and you're paying for their insight and their wisdom, it's like, it makes so much sense.
It's invaluable.
Yeah.
It's invaluable.
I think another reason why a lot of people don't do it is when you hire a coach, it's like, now you're serious.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
When you pay, you commit. Mm-hmm. When you pay for something,
And that's
especially
scary for a lot of
expensive,
people.
Yeah, it's high ticket
You're like,
price.
oh, I have to actually do it. I'm not just like paying $200 for something super quick I can get online and then just like it sits there. Like, no, you're committed. You know.
Any bad advice that you've been given that you just totally like, disregarded? That was terrible.
Oh, that's good. Bad advice that's terrible for business. To just focus on social media. It's like that was where my main focus was. Just it wasn't necessarily because of business. It was just because I started on social media. It was fun. I like to share. It just kind of happened. I kept doing it naturally, but not necessarily for business. But I think people think that, yes, you have to be on it, but no, that's not the only thing you should focus on. You should focus on things that move the needle forward for you, building out the things that you're going to be doing, not just like building out your social media and like making it pretty and then like engagement and the algorithm and all that stuff. Like, yeah, it's important, but it's not the most important.
Right. What comes after
like,
that?
You know? Yeah.
What do you find then with people like that? Do you get that a lot where they're so focused on that, but then at the end goal, it's like, well, what are you going to do that with? Because we talk about this on the show a lot. A lot of times people
It's like when you're focused on supplements.
Right.
Instead of like building your fitness foundation. It's the same thing.
Right. Very similar, right? You're talking about splitting hairs of difference by the supplements you're taking. Like, that's not a big deal.
Well, that's what people see. That's why. It's what they see. They see that's the surface. And
it's not what's under the iceberg.
That's right. So you see the surface, and for the average person, that looks like it's the most important thing because that's all they see. They don't see all the other stuff that's beneath. That's the real work.
Well, I also think that a lot of people don't see, I think you put a lot of thought into even the pictures that you post and the content that you put out there. What are some things that, speaking to the YouTube and audience and people that are probably wanting to be influencers, what are some of the do's and don'ts with social media and Instagram?
Oh, this is good. So some of the do's are definitely to storytell. Storytelling is like something like one of the most important things you can do as someone who's trying to grow and build a tribe and connect to people, because people connect through stories, and you are the only thing that separates you from like the next person who's doing fitness on Instagram. Obviously, you can like create really creative content. If you're a super creative person, you can do something original that's not new. But you're the only thing that I always say, you are the only thing that differentiates you from like the next fitness coach or like the next person on social media. So definitely differentiate yourself. Not only differentiate yourself, but tell stories. Things to not do is, again, just focusing on the wrong things, focusing on only doing it for the likes and the engagement, but like making the impact is more important than the amount of followers and likes that you have. So people are just like, how can I get more and more likes? I'm like, what? Are you doing anything with them? Like, what are your people liking your stuff for? What are they getting out of it? What impact are you making? Because it's not even just about the followers anymore. Like, yeah, having followers helps you get more opportunities because people see it as a status symbol now. Like, even you guys are like, oh, it's a great opportunity to get you on. Like, what, you know, it's like, it's not just a status symbol, but you're just connected to a large amount of people.
Out right there. Oh, snap.
I was like, no. But the impact that you're, like, if you're small and still growing, focus on like how can you make the few people who are already following you lives better? Because if you're just an extra person that's just like posting pictures of themselves, emojis for captions, there's not like a whole lot of substance behind what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're not gonna make it in the long game. Like you're just gonna.
Well, do you just want attention? I mean, is that why you're? That's the thing. People have to ask themselves like, why am I doing this for attention? Because if you just want attention, that's easy.
Totally,
but if you want to turn it into business, or if you want to help people or whatever,
attention's easy.
Attention is very, very easy. I mean, I can't tell you. There's pages that have. I know pages with 250,000 followers on Instagram who will try to sell a product or a program that they're put together and will get no response because their followers literally could give a shit. All they care about is liking their pictures.
I want to marry you.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Well, if you're also intending to start a social media to build a business, what are some of the things that maybe were good investments for yourself, like to get started? Like, do you use like a better camera for like photos? Is there certain like stuff that you use for YouTube that's worked really well for you for someone who's just starting to get started?
Yeah, I think in terms of cameras and stuff, honestly, like if you're gonna get started with photos, like an iPhone is pretty good. If you don't have an iPhone or an Android, like turn the HDR on your iPhone or whatever, and focus on really good lighting and focus on all that stuff. Having a good camera totally helps. Having someone take photos of you who you trust that can take good photos, that knows angles, that knows lighting, that's definitely the biggest game changer for attention and marketing purposes. Because if you're taking shitty photos, like no one's even going to see your stuff. Yeah. Like no one's going to click on it. No one's going to find it. No one's going to care. It's just the attention game on Instagram especially is super, super strong. Yeah. You have to scroll and like be something that pops out. So if you're not focusing on, if you're being lazy with your photography and your videos, it's not going to be, it used to be able to be good for you. It used to be able to kind of, be the bare minimum that you can do and it would work. But now that there's so many people growing on social media, there's so many people that have a lot of followers and there's so many people that are signing up every day. So it's the attention game.
Now, do you follow a lot of like the new apps that are coming, and do you find it important to use Snapchat and Twitter, and like what do you recommend for people?
I think it's important to use Instagram stories. I think it's really freaking important.
Yeah.
If you're using Snapchat, that's cool too, but Instagram stories, if you use it, it's like the poor man's vlog. I heard someone say that once. I was like, oh, that's good. But vlogging, I think, is super connective and emotionally connective because you get to see what people are doing right now. You get to see their faces. They get to talk directly to you. And I think a lot of people forget that they should like talk to people. You should speak to your people. Like you have to talk to them, not just like take a photo of your sock. That's cool socks, by the way. Like I'm wearing Chucks.
You went
I
extra
hope that
fancy
this,
today. Yeah, he doesn't normally do that.
So like instead of you just taking your photo of your Chucks and hope that people who like Chucks will also connect to you, talk about something that connects to them versus just taking the photo and being like someone's gonna scroll through. I think a number one, Instagram stories helps with the algorithm. Instagram wants you to use it. If you use all the features, even better. I think Instagram stories is super important. And then Twitter is cool still. I think it's hard to connect all the social medias together. You can, but you have to like be intentful and strategize how you do that.
Strategery.
Strategery. I think I was trying to say that, but I was like,
I'll make it up for you.
Yeah.
George Bush.
Great.
Do you personally have favorite platforms that you use for one, just because you like to use it, and or two, ones you find convert to money better than others?
Email list converts.
The best.
That's it. Everybody says that
from everybody.
Everybody says that.
You'd say,
well, I did so interestingly enough, I did a launch that was like a very marketing style launch where we did email list stuff, but I also did Instagram and social media posts, and like I did YouTube video stuff. I'm almost positive, almost like 75% of sales came from the email list sequences versus me posting and telling people about it. I also spent a lot of time with that launch, hyping it up months and months before. I had a Facebook group that we would answer questions in about the program. I made videos showing what I was doing with it. But if you're doing digital stuff, it's really hard to like visually show your experience with it. It's like, I'm on my computer again. Here's another thing of me working. It's kind of just hard to show that. So I did talk about it.
Dramatizations, like Lego stuff. Like, this is what I built out today.
Yeah, seriously. But definitely focusing on like hyping it up and building it up and being really excited about it on your own social medias is great. But I do think email list is still the king for
Everybody says that.
conversions.
Everybody we've talked to says that's probably.
It seems so dinosaur, but
It seems that way,
it
but
converts,
I think
People are used to clicking on things in emails, though,
Yeah.
They're not used to
where you do
clicking
most
on
of your business
Instagram.
if you think about it.
and it's also it's not like you're just emailing random people. Like these are people you've been talking to and helping through email. So it's
Yeah,
like,
and you're not just like selling them through email all the time. Like you're writing maybe valuable stories or valuable tips. Like I'll like share things with my email list a few times a week that are like helpful to them. Send out podcast episode blasts and all that stuff. So like things that they like to see. It's
so
not
there's
just
value
like,
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you work a lot of hours?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'm trying to do less.
What time
It
do you
does
start?
sound
What
like
time do
it.
you stop during the day? Be honest.
My goal is to start at 8 and my goal is to stop at 4. But like lunch in between.
That's not bad at all.
That's your goal, but what happens?
That's a goal. I just started having that goal 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay, awesome.
So
Is it working?
kinda.
Awesome.
Over the last like few weeks, there was some things that were already in place, like this meeting today, and I mean, I guess it's still like 9 to 4 or whatever today. But yeah, there was like still some things in place that I was like, okay, I can't get around that. But like my goal is to just set up like meetings and interviews and any other just computer work during the day, so I'm not doing it like in bed at night and stuff like that. So like my goal is to make sure that everybody who has responsibilities to do things for like the next day on my team is all doing them during those hours. So I
Very
don't have
cool.
to get back on.
Well,
that night.
we are happy that you're here because we really think there needs to be more voices like you in this, wellness, optimizing your life and fitness world, because there's so much noise, there's so much bad information, and it's especially to women and girls, and to have a young girl like you who competed and did all that, but sends this great, positive, honest message is awesome. That's why we like having. That's why we wanted you here on our show.
Yeah, thank you
So
guys.
really
Yeah,
appreciate
it's
it.
encouraging.
Hopefully, we're best friends now.
Yeah.
We are.
All right.
It's
We're
been
your
awesome
favorite-
to talk to you guys.
Well, she already told us what her favorite podcast
Yeah.
ever.
That was the next question.
Yeah.
I'm
What's
sure
your
we'll
favorite
do
fair.
podcast?
Yeah. What's our favorite one that we've done?
Our favorite podcast?
Yeah. To listen to, or that we've like done in collaborations
That
or
you've
interviews.
done.
Oh, okay.
That's tough.
You know who's interviewed us the best?
Josh Trent.
Josh Trent. Yeah.
We just
You
said
told
that.
me about him, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Josh Trent
He
is
does a really good job.
We're
Yeah.
not hard to interview. Let's be honest. You ask one question, we'll talk for hours on one question.
Well, we'll see because I'm doing your guys after this.
Oh yeah, no, it's not.
Don't write more
it's
than
not a
3
problem.
questions.
I'm like,
But we like the comfortable conversation and stuff. Josh does a good job of that. Whereas other interviewers are like, next question.
I think
And
what's
it's like
more,
not even related.
I think
to-
what's more important than who is like, because I think you're right. I think it's the people that understand that when you're interviewing someone, especially it's just like interviewing you right now and talking to you, you have a lot of good stuff to say. So I don't have to talk a lot. All I have to do is ask a couple of questions and
Facilitate.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think some podcasters get in their own way sometimes.
yeah.
Especially when they have guests that can carry it. Now, mind you, the challenge of being a great podcaster is being able to go the other direction when you have a guest who doesn't have a lot
You
to
have to carry
contribute.
the whole
Just-
thing
right?
for
You got to
them,
carry
yeah.
the whole.
Totally.
So, but
How long has that happened to you guys? Like how often?
rarely.
yeah, it's-
Well, there's 3 of us.
No, there's
so.
there's 3 of us,
True.
and
There's power in that.
and our interview style is very much like I'm asking you the questions I want to know the answers to.
Right.
I don't think about, and this may be a bad thing, but I don't necessarily think about my audience like, what do they want to know? Like, I'm having a conversation with you. I want to know these things. And luckily, it works out in the way it sounds more authentic, and we have better conversation.
Totally.
Rather than,
Yeah,
I
we're
better
not
ask
reading
her.
questions that we
Yeah,
built
I need
ahead
to
of
ask
time.
her this, and I need to ask her this, and then I better ask. It's like you'll be talking about your mom, and then I'll want to know why. Based off of that story, why something else, and it's just what I want to know.
Totally. Yeah. I can see that. And that's how I like listening to podcasts too. I'd rather them be like, you don't know the direction it's going to go
Right.
in, and then it kind of just
Oh,
happens, and it's easy, and you just stem off of each other, and it's fun.
Well,
Yeah.
if
Way
any
more
of your
natural that way.
Yeah.
viewers come and listen to our show, I promise you will have no idea where the show's going.
It's a little
Many
more
times.
raucous.
Should be a little bit of a
I'll have to
warning
warn
with that
you,
for
yeah.
sure.
Many times. So,
Watch out.
Yeah.
I definitely think that this will be a regular thing. I mean, I tell you what, we're only a plane flight away. We go down to LA all the time, so I'm sure
It's a
we'll.
quick hour flight.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sure we'll do plenty of collaborations in the future. I was super excited to have you here. It's been an absolute pleasure being
Thank-
on your channel.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bucci fans.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
guys. Thanks so
You
much.
can find us at Mind Pump. Our website is Mind Pump Media, and we also have a YouTube channel, MPTV Mind Pump TV.